Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Uh, this time with it's kind of three-dimensional with different kinds of angular pieces. I've had some curses and blessings over my last 2 years living here in the Phoenix area. I've had a difficult time networking with people. I just sometimes I feel like oil trying to mix with water here, or vice versa, right? Or it could be what other things don't mix very well. I know I've alloyed certain metals that don't go very well together. I tried to make uh, bismuth bronze, right? So an alloy of copper with bismuth. It works, but you need a very high temperature to do that. If you just melt bismuth and try to drop copper in there, right? Good luck, right? I kind of feel like I mingle just like that, right? Or uh, what other alloys have I done? I know I've done things that don't mix very well. The carbothermal reductions, right? It takes a good amount of energy to get when you're reducing metal oxides back to metal with carbon or aluminum, right? It takes a good amount of energy to activate that. Unfortunately, I haven't run into that energy just yet, right? I'm sure there are people I would get along with here in the Phoenix area, right? So yesterday, yesterday I was at an event where people just kept talking over me. I had good things to say. After we were packing up, I even straight up asked some of the people who had ignored me, if there's something about me, you can feel free to speak up. I'm not going to be offended. I'm here to learn. And even then, they had nothing to add. They just didn't notice me or something like that. And so and then a lot of times I also don't get my concerns heard over at work, right? So I teach at two different community colleges, and I was negotiating contracts for the spring semester of 2025. And I ran into some difficulty because at previous jobs just like that, a lot of times these contracts could get canceled last minute, right? And so a lot of times I end up overbooking myself, thinking that some of these contracts are going to get canceled. That's what I did going into the fall semester. And as a result, I'm very overworked right now, and I lost my Savers credit for this year. If you make under a certain amount and you contribute $2,000 into your Roth IRA, there's a tax credit. But I took on so much work that I lost that credit, and I overbooked myself. And so I was trying to talk to the two different colleges about the spring semester to avoid running into the same drama. And all I got was that we can't really make any guarantees. And so I kind of promised myself if I end up overbooked again in the spring, I'm going to take a break during the summer. Did you ask for a meal plan as part of your contract? They don't actually do that. That's the other problem. Nobody really has a meal plan there, which I guess is a good thing because the students really shouldn't be forced into that if that's not what they want, right? Uh, but anyways, I kind of promised myself that if I get overbooked in the spring, I'll take the summer off and maybe even spend the summer in a different city altogether because of how difficult I am with having it here in the Phoenix area. Look at it. I always look at the clock when it's 9:11 a.m. or p.m. I think that's part of the reason I've been running into a lot of bad luck. But I uh, I live with chronic pain, and I have to ask for forgiveness because I didn't do the fast for Yom Kippur this year. Peter Shit's going to be really upset at me. Peter Shit had talked about Yom Kippur in his last broadcast and how he's sorry that he's not going to be able to update us for the. I don't know why Peter Shit won't do a video on Yom Kippur. I've never taken off work for Yom Kippur. In fact, one of my students, because she's Jewish and heard about me fasting, asked me why it was okay for me to work. I said, I'm not working. I'm doing a hobby that happens to pay me money. I don't think God would be upset about that. And she kind of laughed and was happy. That's how I feel about my job. So that's good. So I don't know why Peter shit. Uh, I don't know how to make a wish. Yeah, but I always happen to look at the clock when it's 9:11 a.m. or p.m. Or on the day of 9/11. I think I've happened to every year on September 11th. I always wake up at one of those key moments, 8:46 a.m., 9:03 a.m., or I don't know why. I connect with 9/11. I think this year I ended up, when I woke up and I looked at the clock, it was 8:46. And just a really eerie feeling. Although it was the wrong time zone, it was here in Phoenix, so maybe it's not the end of the world. Okay. I need a huge prayer for this. A lot of people don't recognize that singles have their own challenges, right? If I were married and both of us worked at Mesa Community College and CAC, we could spread out our contracts between the two of us. And if, let's imagine my spouse and I both had 2 contracts, right, for a total of 4. If one of them got canceled, it wouldn't be the end of the world, right? We wouldn't be taking 3, 4, 5 contracts each, just in case anything untoward were to happen, right? That's okay. That's okay. But at the same time, I wish that when there was something that I wanted, that it would reciprocate, right? So, for example, speaking of the losing the Savers credit this year, last year I was working at Phoenix College, at Grand Canyon University, and then I took on a gig at a tutoring center, and I had to quit the tutoring center early December because when I looked at my pay stubs, I was going to run close to the cutoff for the Savers credit, and it really upset my student. I told him I would be back in January, but it turned out that they found somebody else anyway, and I had more than I wanted to do at the beginning of the year. But I didn't seem to get the same kind of reception that somebody who was married would have gotten if they had other issues going on, right? I just wish it would reciprocate, right? And then don't forget, looking for that future spouse is almost like a chore in it of itself, right? I mean, I love my art, don't get me wrong, but part of the reason I do that, part of it, not all of it, part of the reason I do this is to hope to network with the right people. And people forget that single life comes with its own set of chores, right? First of all, you have to do all of your chores alone, right? Cooking, cleaning, that's obvious, right? The not so obvious thing is that if you want to look for that partner, that's also a additional chore that married people don't have to think about, right? I wish people would recognize that, right? Not that I need any help with it. I just need people to recognize it so that when I want to take time off or whatever it is, right? So, okay. What else I wanted to say? It's also a blessing in disguise. I have a classmate from high school when he married his high school sweetheart, but at the same time, he works a typical 9 to 5, and that's it, right? He doesn't have all these hobbies. I think it's almost like a resource curse, right? If a country just has gold and oil and bismuth under their feet, they're not going to innovate as much as a country that doesn't, right? And so it might not be the end of the world. So, for example, the art projects, I wrote the #1 AI for the game of Scout this year. And I don't have the facilities to do that, but I wrote some AI to think about how one might create really heavy elements. I did some AI on some machine learning on calculating the stability of the heavy metals between 111 and 118 on the periodic table. I discovered that moscovium, which is element 115, Moscovium 2, the isotope 299, possibly has a half-life of 14 million years. And I did some calculations on how one might create it. It's not as easy as some of the lighter isotopes of Moscovium that have very short half-lives. Livermorium 300 potentially has a half-life of 31,000 years, if I remember correctly. Again, difficult to create. The Livermorium would be interesting, though, because it would have a crystal structure that is a simple cubic, and potentially could make very interesting crystals. Although, as for real-life applications, who knows, right? And it would have a density of more than gold, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, the element directly below gold has none of the isotopes has a really long half-life. I think the longest was only in the months, if I remember correctly. But again, if I were married and didn't have to think about doing stuff to attract the right people, it's doubtful I would have ever had an art career, right? It's doubtful I would have written the #1 AI for the game of Scout. It's doubtful I would have done the machine learning for creating Moscovium. It's doubtful that I would have invested in precious metals, exploring these, because part of the reason I invest in precious metals goes beyond just trying to make cold hard cash out of it, right? It's doubtful that I would have found this apartment, and I have some of the best roommates that I could have, which is making things really tricky, because if I'm going to take a sabbatical next summer and miss out on this, right? Because if I'm not going to be working here, I'm actually hoping to spend some time in Poland, where the cost of living is less, right? And I could still take on remote work, although I don't think I would want to do that because the time zone might be tricky. Okay, please pray for today's event at the potluck, and pray that I mingle with the right artists and get my work out. And take a guess at what this monument is. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.